podcast page at afr.net. Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Today is Tuesday, March the 5th, 2024. Thanks for joining us. Joining me in studio is Wesley Wildman. Good morning, Wesley.
Good morning.
Fred Jackson.
Good morning, Tim.
And in Kansas City is our good friend Ray Pritchard. Good morning, Brother Ray.
Good morning, Tim. How you doing today?
Doing well for this Tuesday, March the 5th. I got one more day to be 60 years old.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. We celebrated his birthday party. We had that on Sunday afternoon for lunch. Mom cooked a big meal. She did a great job there. She did a good job.
I approve.
We did approve.
I approve of that meal.
I remember on my second plate, I was able to let everyone know it was good to go.
You tested it, right?
I tested it, made sure, and I wanted to know what to stay with and what to avoid, and I confirmed after plate 2 that it was all good.
It was all good.
Talking about my lovely and talented wife, Allison, who made our whole family, all our kids and 10 grandchildren.
That's a bunch.
That's a bunch.
Yeah.
Oh,
in
yeah.
our little house, let's say we got 2,600 square feet.
Yeah, well, there's 18 people in there.
And 18 people in there.
10 kids.
If anybody had COVID, we all got it.
That's right. 10 kids. The food was wonderful.
Well, I tell you what.
Yeah.
Your mama, and I could say that with affection. Yo mama.
Yo, Mom.
She loves her some butter.
That's right about that.
Because we had broccoli with our butter.
That's right.
Good.
And then we had lima beans with our butter.
That's right. And
I
then-
noticed the way you put that. Not butter
With-
on the lima.
That's
You had like
Right.
with
Lima
the butter.
beans.
And then
How
we
do
had
y'all
butter,
cook at y'all's house, Ray? You'd like a lot of that butter?
Oh, listen, the more butter, the better, right? Butter is good for the heart and the soul. Well, and for the soul anyway.
And all
I
the
don't know about
cardiologists listening right now.
Well,
Remember the 2 B's, butter and bacon, okay?
yeah,
Butter and bacon.
I was sitting there watching her make the broccoli, and I said, she pulled out a whole stick of Land O'Lakes butter and threw it in the pot. She said, "This is how my grandma made it. This is how I'm making it." Huh?
It's good enough for grandma, good enough for me.
Yeah.
That's right.
She actually did add a little bacon or a little ham.
Yeah, a
With-
little ham hock. You got to put
with-
a little ham hock
Oh,
in there to give
got
it
to.
No,
flavor.
So I wasn't just saying they're separate. We actually put them together, butter and bacon.
Yeah.
Or a little ham.
Well, okay, so what did you have for the main deal? Was it roast beef? Did you
Chicken
have
spaghetti.
Homemade.
Chicken spaghetti.
Homemade chicken spaghetti with rotel.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Really
Oh,
good.
yeah.
I don't know if we're going to be able to get to the program today.
That's
We're
right.
gonna-
I'd
Might as
like
well
a
just
second
break-
helping right
Right
now.
here, Romy's restaurant down the
We'll
road.
do a cooking show.
Little local. We got a little local restaurant here in town
Was
called
there room
Romy's.
for dessert after all of that?
Oh, yeah, we
Yeah.
had birthday cake,
That's
Fred,
Oh,
and it was awesome.
yeah.
It was just traditional white cake with icing on there.
And 60-some candles.
61. I had to blow out.
16. 16. 1 and a 6.
Well,
I mean,
you know,
sorry.
You reach a certain age where they don't put the candles on there anymore. They
That's
just
right.
put
There's
it
too
on.
many.
They put it on there.
Sets off the alarm.
It's not even decades anymore. It's score.
That's right.
20 years. So
Right.
three
Like a
score.
basketball score.
Uh-huh.
So we celebrated 3 score in 1 year for me. But actually, my birthday's tomorrow for those who want to send gift certificates and
Golf balls.
golf balls, and that I can. Anyway,
So your birthday's tomorrow. Well, you're sharing a birthday
Tomorrow.
with somebody else on staff.
Who's that?
yeah.
One of our youngest
Bronson?
edition, Bronson.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's tomorrow.
He's slightly younger than you.
Yeah, appreciate you pointing that out to me, Fred.
And
Yeah, like,
reminding us.
like he's in
Pretty
the-
much everybody's slightly
I know,
younger than
right?
Tim, right? I mean, you've reached that age, right?
Yeah. Yeah, what the old saying, there's more in the rearview mirror than there is in front of us.
That's
For
right.
some of us now. Now, Wesley hadn't reached that point yet, but
No, but I have reached
Yeah.
the point where y'all told me 10
Right.
years ago that if you keep eating that pizza,
yeah,
your doctor's
Yeah.
going to tell you.
right. Yeah.
Right.
Well, we're
What'll
at that.
work.
We are there.
What are you, 30? What are you?
34.
34. Okay.
So the doctor has told me now.
Yeah.
Stop
You have to
eating.
watch that.
Yes, right. You have to be more careful.
Yeah. It doesn't just fall off of you anymore.
No,
It stays
no.
on you.
No.
It does.
All right. A lot to talk about today on the program. We thank you for listening to American Family Radio. Wesley, tell folks if they want to, the different ways we have of getting this program out.
Well, right now we're still confirming whether our social media accounts are working for different reasons, but I can tell you for certain that AFR.net, there you can find us streaming our audio to our radio live. It's 24/7. Also, the AFR app is what I would encourage you to download if you have a smart device. It's the AFR app, and the reason so is because the AFR app has 3 different of our networks. It has all the talk station, which you're listening to now, has our hybrid station, which is a combination of music and talk, but it also has its own set apart station that's just radio. So just music. So it's just music station is on the AFR app, and that music station that's on the AFR app you can't get anywhere else. So go to AFR.net or download our AFR app.
Fred, first story.
Well, I guess we can say that, Donald Trump in the news a lot, and a lot of it is negative.
He doesn't like that. He doesn't seek attention.
No, not at all.
He would rather not be in the limelight.
Mainstream media tells us every day about all the trials he's facing, et cetera, et cetera. But he's having a pretty good 48 hours.
Yeah.
Yesterday, the 9-0 decision by the Supreme Court.
That's right.
He was very happy with that with regards to efforts by some states, Democrats.
So that was ridiculous.
Keep him off the ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Colorado, namely, they tried to keep him off the ballot. And Supreme Court of the United States said 9-0. You're not going to start that. We're not starting to keep somebody off the ballot.
Yeah. So although there is an effort, there were some reports this morning, some Democrats in Congress say because the court said something of this nature, insurrection clause, has to go through Congress. So there's a few rapid Democrats that are saying, well, we're going to make a try at that.
Sure.
It's not going to work. But anyway, they had to be on there. By the way, the ladies at The View yesterday went ballistic on this.
Yeah, that's disappointing.
What a surprise.
Now, I say Trump had a good day. Anytime he makes the ladies at The View angry, that's Trump. Trump's having a good day.
They were mad at Trump, or they were mad at the Supreme Court?
All mad at the Supreme Court. They just think a total injustice was done.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Anyway, he had the 9-0 decision yesterday. Last night, the results came in from North Dakota. He took 87% of the vote in that primary there, so he picked up 29 delegates. And today is Super Tuesday. 16 states and a territory are all voting. That the voting started early this morning.
What territory?
We're going to go to
Samoa?
Samoa. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we'll stay up all night and wait for the results.
Wait for the results from Samoa?
Samoa.
We'll be here all night waiting for that.
That's right. Tomorrow morning, our time.
The states that will be voting today will be Alabama, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Vermont, and Virginia. And I know that we kind of can predict where this is going to go, but it is important when we're talking about voting that AFR mentions that we have a voter guide. And go to AFAaction.net, AFAaction.net. We have our voter guide there. And keep that in mind as we press forward into. Yeah,
and that's also for even some state races, congressional races. It's the best voter guide for Christians all over in America. There may be somebody just as good, but none better.
That's for sure.
It's called iVoter Guide.
Yes,
iVoter Guide. Many people, millions have used it. But anyway, so big day, Super Tuesday. So it's called Super Tuesday probably because it's maybe the day when more people vote in a primary than any other day on the calendar, right?
Yeah. And the way things are going, both on the Republican and Democrat side, if Trump and Biden have a good night, this will pretty well nail things down for them. If there's about 854 Republican delegates at stake here, you add that to what Trump already has, it would put him over 1,000 delegates. 1,200 and something is kind of the bare minimum what you need in delegates. So a lot of people watching this just to see the numbers. The predictions are that Trump will have a good day today. That's the predictions.
Oh, yeah, he'll probably sweep.
Yeah.
Probably sweep the Republican. I don't know. Biden will sweep the Democrat. So, I think everybody's pretty well known this for at least a couple months now where this was headed. So, Nikki Haley, the former governor of South Carolina and UN ambassador under Trump, UN ambassador, right?
Yes.
She is staying. She's in now, but I don't know. After today, I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't. She didn't say tomorrow she's.
Yeah, she's defiant. I'll give her credit. I mean, she hasn't quit. She was on with Fox and Friends this morning, and she says she's staying in there. She says the people need a choice. I'm going to play you a cut, a little bit, some Nikki Haley, some Donald Trump, talking about polls, et cetera, et cetera. Cut number 6.
If you look at any of the general election polls, Joe Biden and Donald Trump are even. I think there was a Fox poll today. He was up by 2. That's still margin of error. Between last week's poll and this week's poll, I defeat Joe Biden by up to 18 points.
It's a lie. She knows it's a lie. Look, I have beaten Biden in every poll taken for the last 3 months. She loses to Biden in the poll. She had one fake poll that was taken a long time ago, actually before she started on her little kick, and where she was up. Nobody ever heard of the poll. Nikki Haley loses to Biden. She will lose to Biden. The polls are saying that. And then when you add other candidates, she loses by even more.
Yeah, Steve Jordahl just ran off the latest polls, even up to yesterday. Donald Trump is beating Biden in all of these polls. I'm not sure. Maybe Trump is right that she's looking at an old poll. But in these latest polls, according to Real Clear Politics, these are Fox polls, Wall Street Journal, CBS. It has Trump. Some of the polls not up by much, but he is beating Biden.
Well, now, just may show my ignorance here, but could she be on the GOP ballot with Trump in the general election, or no?
No.
So only one.
No, yeah. You have to win your party's primary, and then only that person, unless they break off and go independent.
Yes.
Okay, so unless she goes independent, there's going to be.
She said yesterday she's a Republican.
Okay.
So what'll happen in the end? This is what happens every time they fight and squabble and call each other names, and then in the end they.
But usually you don't go this long, right? Well, after tonight, we'll see.
Well, it just depends. You usually don't go this long unless you're closer to one another. And
that's right.
And Nikki Haley's been trailing Trump by 30, 40 points most of the time.
Sure.
So that's not close. Ray, you agree with that analysis there?
Well, the only reason I can see her going forward after tonight, when she's going to get swept, she's not going to win a single state. She won D.C., okay? But that's an outlier for Republicans. She's going to get swept. The only way I think she goes forward is in the hope or maybe prospect that Mr. Trump gets in legal difficulty, which could happen if one of the trials actually goes forward and he gets convicted, and you could imagine certain scenarios. That's the only reason I could see for her to stay in the race after tomorrow. Otherwise, after she gets swept tonight, if she stays in, her vote numbers are going to go down and not up.
Okay. Arguing about what Trump said is kind of a moot point, all right, about Nikki Haley.
Right.
But Nikki Haley in the Fox poll, Fox News, Nikki Haley I'm looking at Real Clear Politics, on Sunday, March 3rd, she shows up, Nikki Haley 50, Biden 42.
Okay.
So this is me talking. This is why I say it's a moot point, because Trump's going to win the Republican nomination. So arguing about whether or not Nikki Haley could beat Biden is a moot point, except to say she could. Okay. And I think she in a general election would have just as good a chance to beat Joe Biden as Donald Trump. That's my
Are you saying that based on numbers or your opinion or
well,
both?
every poll I've seen, she beats Joe Biden.
Okay, gotcha.
But so does Donald Trump now recently.
Sure.
So I'm just saying. So really, it only matters who's going to win the Republican nomination, which will be Trump, as we go into the general election in the fall. I think what Ray's talking about with Nikki Haley, if she stays in beyond now, she's just trying to get delegates and go to the convention, and then maybe take 30%. Who knows of the delegates? And as I've said, Trump is 78 years old in June. Your health starts deteriorating at that age. A lot of people, mental and physical. So what if he has a heart attack in June? What if he has to have both knees replaced in August? I mean, what if he starts showing signs of going downhill mentally? And you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I'm just saying these things. Now she won't say something like that out loud because it doesn't sound good. All right, but I'm just saying we all know that those things happen to people of Trump's age, and she may be thinking, I'm going to hang in there. And who knows? I may finish second. He may not be able to run, and I'll be the nominee. That's what I'm saying. She may be thinking if she stays in the race.
Yeah. And the question is, though, if Trump is still well and he's at the top of the ticket, can the party come together? And that was another question that was discussed in the interview this morning that Trump did with Fox News, cut number 5.
As a certain person, Gavin Newsom, said, there is a man named Gavin Newsom. He interjected himself into this. He said, she's their best surrogate for the Democrats. And that's right. She lost when you had Republican primaries where Democrats were allowed to vote. And they went in large numbers to try and make me look bad. And I still won. There's no path for Nikki. I wish Nikki the best. But she stood up and many, many times said, I'd never run against our president. He was a great president. I would never run. And then she ran. So, those things you don't like to see. You like to see people that are truthful. With all of that being said, our party has to come together because we have to beat the Democrats, and they play dirty. They play very dirty.
Now, has Nikki responded to whether she would get behind Trump?
She has been asked that a number of times because going back to the early debates when there were, 12 people on the stage or whatever it was.
That's right.
And they were asked, will you support the eventual nominee?
There you go, yeah.
And she put up her hand saying yes.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, she has been asked, would you support the nominee? And she has refused to answer that question.
As of recent?
Oh, just in the last 2 or 3 days.
Listen, okay. If I criticize Trump, people get mad and emotional and everything. Sure. I'm just asking, can we not do that, okay? Trump did not say he would support the Republican nominee.
That is right.
So I don't want to hear from Donald Trump about party unity and all this stuff. Yes, I'm going to vote for him because it would be a disastrous second term. And I think the vast majority of people who vote Republican are going to vote for Trump, who are Republican are going to vote for Trump because to see what Biden would be in a second term would be, again, for the Supreme Court, the federal judiciary, it would be absolute disaster. So it's a binary choice. Trump represents the best choice, in my mind, for conservatives in November if he's the nominee. He did some wonderful things as president, his first term, but he's not a unifier. Okay? He's not. He calls people names like a fifth grader. He acts like a child. He's bipolar in that way. He's a grown man who can lead on one day, and the next day he sounds like he needs to be put in the corner in timeout. So it's up to him. He's the leader of the party now. It's up to him, not Nikki Haley, to try to unify the troops. You see what I'm saying, Wesley?
Yeah, I can't agree with you more on that.
You can or can't?
I can't agree with you more. The reason is because, well, I don't know. Did I say that right?
I didn't know what you said there, if you agree with me or not.
Okay, let me rephrase.
You need to agree with me.
I do agree with you.
Because he's 61.
That's 61 years old. No, I agree. I do agree that the ball, and it has been for a while, the ball's in former President Trump's court to unify. And He did that very, very well in his first run in 2016, about 18 months to a year leading up to the election. He did a really good job of meeting with different groups, including the evangelical Christians, and finding the things that mattered to them, and said that he would work in areas that. So he's done that. He's proven that he has done that before, and I hope that we see that here in the next, what do we got, 10 months?
Yeah. Really interesting. Just before coming into the studio, I put an Associated Press story on our site, afn.net. And the story is that Trump's people are meeting with Mitch McConnell's people. Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump have not been best friends in the recent years. But apparently McConnell is on the doorstep of giving a formal endorsement to Trump. Because McConnell, as we know, last week he announced that he's stepping down as leader come November. But the speculation is he would like to see, obviously, Republicans take the Senate back.
Yeah.
And to do that, he has to publicly endorse Trump. And apparently, as I say, according to the AP, they are in talks, and we're going to get a formal endorsement, apparently, from McConnell of Trump. Probably after Super Tuesday or within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, Ray, this is what happens, this is what happens in politics, right?
Well, as we sit here today, it doesn't seem likely that Nikki Haley would endorse Donald Trump. But when she pulls out and he's the inevitable nominee, she'll get behind him. It may be a half-hearted endorsement. She's probably not going to go out in the stump and make speeches for him. But yeah, you get in line, you support the nominee. That's what it means to be be on the team.
Yeah. Well, I would just say this: Trump makes it harder than it needs to be to unify. We mentioned this before, and I don't know why he does this. I can't explain it, but it doesn't hurt him. Doesn't seem to hurt him. But it's one thing to say, I'm running against Nikki Haley. Here's where I'm good and she's not, or I'm better, or whatever. I can be. That's all wonderful. That's all good and fine. You start calling a woman a bird brain, who is the former governor, 2-time governor of South Carolina, and you're a UN ambassador. That's personal. That's demeaning. That's insulting. So when somebody personally insults you, it's harder to reconcile. That's just what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I say, for Trump, I go, why do you call her bird brain? Why don't you just say, Nikki? Why don't you just say that? That way you can get back together more easily. You see what I'm saying? But I don't know why he does it, but his supporters don't give a rip what he calls people.
Well, Tim, he's proven. Go back to 2016. Remember what he called Marco Rubio and what he said about
Ted Cruz, lying Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
Marco, little Marco. He was coming on his stature.
Mm-hmm.
So Trump he beats all I've ever seen. He can absolutely get away with anything, and he knows it. He said, I can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue in broad daylight and people still vote for me. So, I mean, you got to give him credit for being Teflon, Fred.
Well, I think a lot of people have come, they may not like what he says, but they've come to accept his personality. This is Donald Trump.
Yep.
I agree.
And
he's a fighting, spitting business tycoon from New York.
And the 3 years that he was in office, the way that he was, but the first 3 years in which he was attacked.
No question about it.
I think that right there, there's a lot of factors in here, obviously, but the way that he was treated, people remember that.
Yeah, no question about it. No question about it. All right, we'll be back after this short timeout. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
One isn't too old when he discovers that life has its burdens. No person is exempt from them. Each person must eventually come face to face with them. What are we to do with our burdens? How are we to deal with them? I think that perhaps 3 sentences from the Bible will be of help to us. The first sentence is this one: each of us must bear some faults and burdens of his own. There are indeed certain burdens each person must bear primarily by himself. For instance, each person must bear physical pain by himself. No one can bear it for him. Then, too, some of our burdens in life are our own doing, and we have to carry the burden ourselves. I had a small auto accident one night with a man who was driving across the country to get to his dying mother. He'd been driving nearly 24 hours without stopping. The man had paid no attention to his mother for nearly 20 years, and she was expected to die at any moment. Now he was in a hurry to see her before she died. That man will have to bear the burden of neglect himself. Another sentence which can help is this: bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. Strange as it may seem, you can lighten your own burdens by sharing those of another. People often need a friend they can confide in, talk with, and know what they say will be held in confidence. We were taught to do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. So it helps us and another when we help them to bear their burdens by being concerned. That's what we would want them to do for us. The third sentence which can help us is this one: give your burdens to the Lord. He will carry them. Christianity does not remove the burdens which life places upon our shoulders. But Christ does teach us how to best bear those burdens and when to turn them over to Him. It was Christ Himself who said, "Come to me and I'll give you rest. All of you who work so hard beneath a heavy yoke. Wear my yoke, for it fits perfectly, and let me teach you, for I am gentle and humble, and you shall find rest for your souls. For I give you only light burdens." When in life our burdens get so heavy they are difficult for us to carry, it's a great relief to be able to turn them over to God. We miss a great friend and helper when we try to sail life's seas all alone, carrying upon our shoulder the weight of the world. There are some burdens which best can be carried by turning them over to God. Why not do it? Well, life does place upon us some heavy burdens. No rational mind would disagree with that. But I hope that when life's load becomes heavy for you, that you will remember these sentences from the book of books, and they will prove helpful to you.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
Therefore, preparing your minds for action and being sober-minded, set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. 1 Peter 1:13.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back to this Super Tuesday edition of Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim Wildman, Wesley Wildman, Fred Jackson, and Ray Pritchard. We were talking about former President Trump is about to wrap up the delegates he needs to be the Republican nominee. He is going to probably sweep every state today. Nikki Haley is the lone opponent on the Republican side. Everybody else dropped out earlier. So we'll see how she fares today. But most people, everybody I listen to think Trump will sweep in terms of the numbers today. You were going to play one more clip.
This morning, one of the Fox and Friends hosts was at a restaurant in Texas and talking to people about where they stand. It seemed to be a very Trump-friendly crowd. But one of the people they talked to was a a black conservative gentleman. And I found his comments rather interesting as to why he says he believes many, and he particularly said black men are supporting Trump. Cut number 8.
Well, I love to hear Donald Trump talk every time he gets on stage. You know, as a black Republican from the inner city, I can't tell you I like Donald Trump, but it has nothing to do with his tennis shoes or indictments. The majority of black men across America, we do have conservative values. We do have businesses, and we want to raise our kids without the undue influence of Democrat policies. And so that's what he stands for, and we're going to stand with him.
So I think it goes to what we've been talking about. His personality issues are over here. But what people are going to be voting on in November is the economy. It's going to be the border. And they see Donald Trump as someone who is going to go 180 degrees to where Biden has taken the country.
Yeah, also, do you call the word fidelity? In other words, Biden's obvious mental and physical downward trend, I guess you could say. Go ahead, Wesley.
Well, and it's two things. One, Trump has proven to do the couple things that you mentioned as far as what they're wanting out of him. He's proven to have already done that. Number two, I did have a question though. Was that a layperson or was that a spokesperson, or who was the audio from? What?
He apparently he ran for office in Texas, and Trump did give him an endorsement.
Okay, well, the reason I ask is that he handled that question exceptionally well. He spoke for a lot of people.
Yes.
He did a really good job.
Yeah. You know, we've talked about the border being a major issue. There is a story, and Tim, I think you sent this out last night, from the Daily Mail, and the headline is, Biden administration admits flying 320,000 migrants secretly into the U.S. to reduce the number of crossings at the border.
We need to post that story so people can have it for themselves.
We can do that.
Would you post it, Brent, at our Facebook page? Do you have it?
Yes, I got it, and I'll post all the stories probably after the show since Facebook is down.
Facebook is down. Are we being cyber attacked again?
Our cell phones. Check your cell phones, everybody.
Ray, did you know about this story?
Yeah, and you're talking about the flying them in, right?
Yes.
This is a shocking admission, not just that they're flying the migrants around inside America, but they are flying migrants in from various places to cities in America, and this has just come out. It's is it a surprise, Tim? No, it's not a surprise, but it's shocking that the government would they bring them in knowing they're illegal when they're bringing them in.
Well, you remember, we began to see this, I guess it was almost 2 years ago. We began to see stories here and there, it wasn't mainstream news, about flights bringing illegal immigrants to different places around the country. Remember this?
Yeah.
In New York and other places. And now this may have been separate. This is separate. I didn't even know about this story. No, it was separate. This is a separate situation.
Totally. This is
bringing people from other countries.
Initially, it was like Governor DeSantis in Florida, and there were illegals arriving there, and they said, we want to go up to New York.
Well, Biden was flying them in the middle of the night, too.
Yes.
To different places. You remember that?
Yes. This is different. This comes as a result, according to this Daily Mail story, has a FOIA, a Freedom of Information request against President Joe Biden's immigration agencies. So this is a request based on probably from a journalist, and this is what they found out. This is United States taxpayers' money being used to send Biden administration planes to other countries to pick up people who want to enter this country to avoid our laws, our immigration laws, and bringing them back to this country. According to this story, 320,000 of them.
Just 1 year.
Yes.
Just 1 year. Yep. From December to from January to December 2023 in 1 year. Listen to this too. The Freedom of Information Act lawsuit against President Joe Biden Immigration Agency reveals that they will not disclose the information about the secret migrant flights, meaning which 42 airports that they landed in and released the migrants in, because they're worried about the vulnerabilities and national security. So they're concerned about national security, so they're not going to release the information unless there's a lawsuit. Yet we're allowing people unvetted to come into our country as if that's not a national security.
Yeah. I would think what Biden did right there is just illegal to do. Now, I guess in a crisis like we had in Afghanistan, for example, when people are flying out, maybe they fly some of the people over here, but other than that, I can't think of what this isn't what we're talking about. We're talking about Trump. We're talking about Biden and these planes. The Biden administration instructing these planes to go and pick up illegal immigrants and bring them here
and fly them because they say the border's so busy.
Right,
backed up.
That's what they're saying.
We're going to help these folks to avoid the congestion at the border. By the way, the congestion at the border has been caused by Biden.
Right.
So we're paying, you and me, the American taxpayers, Fred, we are paying for the government to bring in illegals who are breaking the law the moment the plane lands. How could that possibly be legal to do that?
All right. This story, so people will know where you're getting your information from, we can't post it on our Facebook page, Today's Issues, right now. Brent's going to do this after the show. But I saw this last night when I was reading in the Daily Mail, which is a British publication on the internet with news stories every day. What's the headlines? If people want to look it up.
Biden administration admits flying 320,000 migrants secretly into the U.S. to reduce the number of crossings at the border has national security quotation vulnerabilities.
And how was this learned? Again, the Freedom of Information Act?
Yes, it was a...
You have it, Wesley, pulled up?
Yeah, I have the link.
Story?
I have the story pulled up on my phone here.
Okay, what did you say, FOIA? The Freedom of Information Act?
Freedom of Information Act.
Was used by who?
The Biden administration.
No,
against
it was a lawsuit against the Biden administration.
Yeah. All right, anyway, that's...
Because they're demanding more details than the Biden administration's giving is what they're demanding, which is because they flew them to 42 different cities.
Yeah, and I just remember, the story I was referring to earlier was a couple of years ago. You remember we began seeing these stories where these illegal immigrants were being flown around the country by Biden, leaving Texas airports and Arizona airports, and Biden was flying them around the country.
Right.
In the middle of the night, you remember they would get off, and he was trying to hide it.
That's right. Yeah.
He was trying to hide it from the general public, and some media caught on to it. Especially that was happening. They was shipping them to New York City, to state of New York, and Florida. Two members, Governor DeSantis, shut that down. Mm-hmm. You remember that? They were flying in Jacksonville, I think. Biden was flying planes into Jacksonville, dropping people off, and DeSantis caught on to it, and he shut it down. He said, no more, you can't fly into Florida anymore and do this. Anyway, did you want to say this?
Yes, that link to that story you're talking about is posted on Today's Issues Facebook page.
Now?
Yes, now.
Okay, you got it now? Okay,
yes.
Today's Issues Facebook page. Ray, go ahead. You were going to say?
Yeah, this is almost, guys, to me like an actual attack on our borders that is instituted at the highest levels of the United States government. Now, what you described, Tim, was them moving them around inside the country. That's awful. But this is much worse. Our own government is bringing, at our expenses, bringing people in and breaking the law in the process.
Yes, listen, okay, my memory goes back to, I'm talking about presidents, my memory goes back to Nixon. I remember Nixon v. Humphrey in, what were them in, at 68? Is that right?
Yeah.
You older fellas?
Right.
Yes, in the wrong
I was
person.
there. I was there.
You were there, Ray?
I was there.
Okay.
Yeah. 68.
Okay. Listen, we've had liberal Democrats for a long time. I never, ever would have thought we would have a president of either party, in this case a Democrat, certainly not a Republican, who sabotaged his own country. Biden has sabotaged, and maybe his own chances at re-election, his own country.
Well, on the political side, talk about gift wrapping an issue and giving it to Mr. Trump.
Yeah.
Trump ought to mention this in every
day.
single speech. But would John F. Kennedy have done this? It's impossible to imagine that. No. Hubert Humphrey, no.
No.
Scoop Jackson, no.
Listen, Bill Clinton or Barack Obama wouldn't have done this. They wouldn't have.
I don't think Clinton would.
No.
I don't think Clinton would have.
No. Absolutely not. And here's the thing: what's happening is,
remember Barack Obama said, "I can't make the DACA."
Yes.
That's right. That's right.
I mean,
I don't have the legal.
Listen, I didn't care for Obama and his politics, but he was much better than Biden on things like this.
Yes.
He was much better. At least he had some semblance of conscience about the illegal immigration.
Well, and his numbers, Trump's numbers were better, obviously, than Barack Obama during his time, as it relates specifically to the number of illegal immigrants coming over. But they were fairly comparable. Trump's were better, but they were not that far off. But if you look at Biden, he has tripled.
Oh yeah, he just opened the floodgates.
Yeah, I mean, my point is, you could prove that Trump did a better job than Obama, but they were still, compared to Biden, they were still in the ballpark. We're not even in the ballpark.
And if Biden doesn't lose in November,
you'll be at 20 million.
If Biden does lose in November, what they'll do is completely shut down. They'll take all this border control. They'll just say, y'all, no resistance at all.
100%. Yep.
We're not even going to pretend anymore.
Yep.
No country in history has ever done what's going on right now.
That's right.
In our southern border. They haven't.
No.
Just allowing an invasion of the country. Joe Biden has orchestrated an invasion of his own country.
And then he acts like he's helpless to do anything to stop it.
Yes.
The Republicans.
All right.
I was just watching.
I'm going to pass the blood pressure machine around, fellas, and we can all take our blood pressure right here, and then we go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm wondering in their calculation of this policy whether they thought about eventually we're going to start to really irritate our own base. I'm talking about Democrats.
That's right.
I don't think they ever considered that.
I don't know.
Yep. They just had a story on Fox a moment ago. The public education system in Chicago is now being forced to educate 6,000 illegals.
Yeah, most of them can't speak English, I'm sure.
Yes, it's going to cost the city $2 billion to educate illegals.
What they're going to start doing, Wesley, let me make sure I explain what I'm saying. I thought the question was, did you ever think, what was your question, Fred? Did you ever think?
Did in calculating this policy,
open borders,
did Biden think about what happens if this starts to, these illegals move into New York, go to Chicago?
Okay. My opinion on that is no. He did not count on the Democrats resisting him on this, but they are.
That's right.
They're starting. At least some of them are high profile. Are starting to, and they're either doing that because they see the reality of what's happening in the streets, or they know the political implications are killing Biden.
Mm-hmm. Well, kids are being kicked out of their baseball parks.
Yeah. Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, Boston, Denver. Yeah. And I'm laughing.
Oh, sure.
Huh?
I get you, absolutely.
And I'm not laughing because people suffer.
No.
But I'm laughing because you get what you vote for.
Mm-hmm.
And these Democrat big cities, they peered down their nose at Arizona and Texas and said,
that's right.
We're a sanctuary city. We welcome all. And then they said, Texas and Arizona, y'all need to suck it up down there and
that's right.
And don't be racist and don't be bigots. Well, guess what? All of a sudden, all these people came to New York and Chicago and San Francisco, and guess what? We discovered there's a whole lot of bigots and racists.
That's right.
In New York and Chicago who don't want as long as it doesn't affect them personally, then they can be superior, morally superior.
That was there has been times in history where you wonder at times, like, how much are the Republicans really care about this when you get down to how they vote. But to give the Republicans credit where it's due, they did step up and bus these illegal immigrants to these sanctuary cities. And if they had not have taken that bold move to do that, we would be talking about it, but it would not be a national story, and it would not be the number one thing that voters are concerned about if they had not have done that.
Governor Abbott is the main one
Yep.
who deserves credit for that. We've invited him on the program. Hopefully we can visit with Governor Abbott coming up soon of Texas. Next story, Fred.
All right. We're well aware of what's certainly going on a day-by-day basis in Israel and their ongoing war against Hamas terrorists in Gaza. The Biden administration now has moved to a point where it is pressuring Israel to withdraw. They're saying ceasefire. There's talk this morning about the pressure is on Israel for a 6-week ceasefire. Hamas is involved in these talks going on in Cairo right now as we sit here. And Hamas is saying we want Israel totally out of Gaza in that 6 weeks. Israel basically has said it's a non-starter. In the midst of all of this, the United Nations issued a report yesterday, and we want to give a little warning right here to our audience who may have little kids listening. There's going to be some sensitive material here we're going to talk about. The United Nations has not been a friend of Israel for years and years and years, but they issued a report yesterday on what happened in particular to Israeli women on October the 7th. The report also says this atrocity of sexual attacks against these women are continuing. Basically, they talked about women being tortured. They talked about women being held hostage still, are being sexually tortured. We asked Gary Bauer, who is member of a high-profile pro-Israel group, to respond to this. This is what Gary Bauer had to say, cut number 12.
I think even the fools that run the United Nations periodically get mugged by reality, and if they have any sense of decency at all, they've got to speak up. What Israel is facing in Gaza is a terrorist infrastructure. They kill Israeli civilians after they've raped the women, and then they hide behind civilians in Gaza to prevent Israel from getting justice. If Hamas and Islamic Jihad were winning the war against Israel, there would be no demonstrations in the United States, and there would be no demands from President Biden or Vice President Kamala Harris for a ceasefire. I hate to say this to our friends in Israel, but Joe Biden is willing to sacrifice Jerusalem if that's what he has to do to make sure he wins Ann Arbor, Michigan.
There you have it. And this, Biden is facing opposition within his own party from the hundreds of thousands of Arabs in Detroit, in Minneapolis, Somalis in Minneapolis, because they want him to demand a ceasefire and for Israel to stop altogether. But then on the flip side, he's going to pressure Israel for a ceasefire, and if Joe Biden gets his way, then there's going to be a lot of people in this country that are saying we are forsaking Israel. We've never done that as a country, but we are forsaking Israel, and the United States will pay for it.
It's one thing to stay neutral and stay out of it. It's another thing to give any indication that you're siding with Hamas.
Yeah. He tries to say Biden and Ray initially tried to. He did support Israel initially, and then ever since then he's been backing off.
That's right.
His support. There's a lot of Jews in America that vote, and they almost all vote Democrat. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of Jewish influence within the Democrat Party structure. So there's a tension there between.
I hate to say it. It's sort of what Gary Bauer said there at the end, that we have to say to our friends in Israel, you right now do not have the unwavering support of the administration in Washington. They push back and forth. Can you imagine? Can you imagine saying, after all the blood, after all the suffering, after all that's gone on in the war in Gaza, that the IDF troops have moved in, to say we're going to have a 6-week ceasefire and all the Israeli troops are going to be taken out for 6 weeks, which simply gives Hamas a chance to rebuild and rearm and attack again. So it is a non-starter. I'm not surprised at that back and forth. It is sad to think that President Biden seems to be. Is he? What would you say? He is lukewarm in his support of Israel?
Lukewarm, waffling.
Yeah.
Trying to do more intervention in terms of dictating to Israel what they can and can't do. Now, again, this is where you have you have somebody like Biden who's mentally unable to process all the information, in my opinion, or handle things on a 24/7 basis. So he's basically designated this to, is it Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State?
Yes.
And then the Kirby, is it John?
John Kirby.
John Kirby. What's his title?
He's a national security advisor.
Those two guys are running the country. Basically, those two guys are running at least our international part of the presidency in Israel. So Biden's basically just, he is saying some things, but he's basically letting them run it. As I mentioned yesterday, and I hate to say it like this, but this is a death match.
It is.
Between Israel and Hamas, and Israel's goal is to squash Hamas once and for all. Now, I'm talking about militarily. The ideology of Hamas, which is hatred for the Jews from the time they're born, that's not going away, I'm sad to say, anytime soon, because it's built on, they hate Jews because of Israel's existence in the first place. And we talked about some of that history yesterday. But it's when I say, Ray, it's a death match.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah,
there's no middle ground.
No.
How are you going to make peace or even talk about a ceasefire with people who want to wipe you off the face of the earth? From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That's what they're teaching the Palestinian kids in the schools.
Yeah.
So they do not want Israel in the land at all. I don't see how you make peace there.
Yeah. Let me give a real quick explanation. Maybe a lot of Americans will understand. Right, you live in Kansas City, Kansas, right?
Right.
Okay, there's Kansas City, Kansas. There's Kansas City, Missouri. What if they were two different countries or two different areas, and the people of Kansas City, Missouri went into Kansas City, Kansas, and murdered 1,200 people on one day, and then Kansas City, Kansas started responding militarily, and then the whole United States goes, hey, stop. Hey, stop, Kansas City, Kansas. You need to quit retaliating against the people who slaughtered your...
Yeah.
Huh?
Not to mention, there is nothing about Hamas that fights within fair war. I mean,
they hide behind women and children, hospitals, mosques,
hostages,
schools.
They do that because they use them as human shields.
That's right.
To keep Israel from attacking. And then if Israel does attack, then they say, look, Israel bombed a hospital.
Yes.
And, that happened.
It's that obvious.
That happened within the first few days.
That's right.
Remember that? And then the media had to go back and say, oops, we were wrong. Israel didn't bomb a hospital.
That's right.
All right, we'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Dr. Travis was a man that was full of life.
Bert Harper of Exploring the Word.
He loved the Word of God, and it came across in the classroom. Dr. Travis put in my heart a desire to know God through His Word. And that's what we're trying to do on Exploring the Word.
Exploring the Word, weekday afternoons at 3 Central on American Family Radio. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Even though the U.S. Supreme Court ruled unanimously that Colorado and other states can't keep Donald Trump off the ballot, Democrats aren't giving up in their quest to take voters out of the equation when it comes to determining elections. Democrat Jamie Raskin says they should have the right to defeat their opponents through having them disqualified and not at the ballot box.
I'm working with a number of my colleagues, including Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Eric Swalwell, to revive legislation that we had to set up a process by which we could determine that someone who committed insurrection is disqualified by Section 3 of the 14th Amendment.
But former President Trump has not been charged with insurrection. George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley says the Supreme Court spoke with one voice on this matter.
And that was a voice that spoke, I think, for a lot of Americans in saying that this is not what we're about, that this was an anti-democratic effort to remove a candidate from the ballot to prevent voters from casting their votes. But it would also allow for an incredible sort of tit-for-tat process in states. And we are the most successful, oldest democracy in the world. And at this late date, you had people trying to introduce something that would be dangerous and destabilizing. The entire court spoke against it, all 9.
Hunter Biden continuing to face scrutiny over his closed-door testimony to members of Congress last week about his past business deals. Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz says he was able to ask some questions towards President Biden's son during the deposition, and he believes he noticed a pattern when the young Biden was answering questions.
Whenever he's getting paid, he suggests that he's a brilliant lawyer, a financial wizard, a man about Washington. But whenever he's demanding payment, and that's where you see the references to Joe Biden, the shakedowns, the threats, well, then he can't be responsible for his actions because he's just a drug-addled fool.
A California congressional candidate traveled to an infamous weak point on the U.S. border with Mexico and decided to make some repairs to the barrier with razor wire. The spot has recently become one of the hot spots for migrants seeking to cross the border illegally. Kate Monroe, a Republican candidate for California's 49th congressional district, says California Governor Gavin Newsom went to the area that she worked on and did a photo op to take credit.
Well, I think my first reaction was to laugh. Like, you can't make up the ridiculous stuff that happens on the left, right? It's like, oh, thank you for coming down to visit the border all these years too late. That's exactly what most politicians do. They stand for things, but they actually do very little. I thought it was actually embarrassing for him. And you can go, back up into Sacramento and do your feckless, malicious neglect of a job.
President Biden has nominated a radical leftist to be his labor secretary. An American Family Association is opposing the appointment.
Julie Su, spelled S-U, was California's labor secretary during COVID and is accused of presiding over tens of billions of dollars in fraudulent unemployment insurance payments. AFA Vice President Walker Wildman says controversy has followed her wherever she goes, not to mention her far-left political values.
She's bad news on multiple fronts. Not only bad news from a worldview, ideology perspective, she's also heavily in bed with the unions.
Sue has been described as an early advocate of critical race theory, the Marxist premise that America is systemically racist and white people routinely oppress minorities. That focus troubles Wildman.
The increased weaponization of the Department of Labor is a very, very big concern for conservative groups and religious groups.
Sue has been endorsed for labor secretary by the Communist Party of Maine. Wildman says she would be Biden's latest diversity hire.
The Biden crew has been pushing this hard ever since they got into office. They want to make this all about quotas. They want to make this all about making sure, hey, we get this, transsexual over here, and we've got enough people of this ethnicity over here. And so it's all identity politics.
AFA is issuing an action alert on the nomination.
We're asking our listeners to contact their U.S. Senator and encourage them to vote no against the Department of Labor Secretary nominee. Her name is Julie Su.
Go to afa.net and follow the Activism tab to find the alert. I'm Steve Jordahl.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
The world around us is constantly challenging the way we think.
That's why we need a constant source of information that's based on the unchanging Word of God. I'm Jeff Chambly, and I invite you to join me for The Stand Radio, a weekly program that highlights the latest trends in culture, faith, and family. You'll hear insightful interviews with a biblical worldview application. The Stand Radio, Saturdays at 4 p.m. and Sundays at 8 p.m. Central on American Family Radio.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back to today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Our spiritual heritage tours are more than halfway full for 2024. And we're talking about our trips in June and September to Colonial Williamsburg, Jamestown, and Yorktown. And then a separate trip to Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. And that trip, we also go on Saturday to Mount Vernon, George Washington's Mount Vernon. So these tours are I lead the tours with my wife, Allison, and Wesley and Walker, and my sons. And then also Stephen and Beth McDowell of the Providence Foundation will be along with us to give all the history and all the talks of the people, places, and events that shaped our country's earliest part of our history, and then also see our nation's capital and all the sites there that you wanted to see. And we'll have a private motor coach, a nice hotel. We'll eat good. A lot of fellowship with people from around the country.
And if you just want a quick sample of what you would get, if you go to spiritualheritagetours.com, we got a brand new video up there that gives you just a 1 minute and 25 seconds.
New?
Within the last. Yep, I'm pretty sure it's new.
Okay.
AFS has been working on it.
All right, so here's the website. Again, we go in June and September. spiritualheritagetours.com.
Okay, it's not. I'm sorry for interrupting you. You go ahead. You go ahead, Dad.
Okay. I'm your elder.
That's right.
And I'm trying to talk. Okay? When I get through, then you can talk.
Yes, sir.
No. spiritualheritagetours.com is the website. Cost, the itinerary, everything. Spiritual heritage. You did it again. I wasn't through.
I thought you paused.
You need to give me more than a second.
Elderly
I'm 61 years old tomorrow.
Old people get so cranky sometimes.
Am I being cranky? Is that what I'm doing here? spiritualheritagetours.com. spiritualheritagetours.com. Now you may proceed to talk, my oldest son. Go.
I need to correct myself. Now looking at the video, they are working on a new video. The current video has you with hair. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, it ain't 35 years old.
No, I'm just kidding. No, it is a short video AFS put together a couple years back, and we're working on a new one. But it accomplishes the same thing. It shows you a couple things and gives you a little bit of background of what you're going to experience on our trips.
Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us now. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. I'm staying out of that one.
Yeah.
Y'all are on your own.
Don't get in the middle of a family feud,
no,
right?
Sir. No,
That's
sir.
the reason you sat off over there in
no
the
need
corner?
to.
Kind of over there.
He's just minding his. It's like we all should do most of the time.
Ray and I, we just don't have anything to say about any of that.
Just mind your own business.
Oh,
right?
boy.
All right, go, Steve.
All right. Hey, woke is on the chopping block in this country. I got a story about how it's being challenged in some of the financial institutes, but it's not dead yet. Do y'all remember that famous photo of VJ Day, the end of World War II, where that soldier is kissing the nurse?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, the Department of Veterans Affairs has just banned it from all of its buildings. They want, because they say the soldier did not ask permission to kiss the nurse. To foster, I'm reading here, to foster...
You're making this up.
I'm not. To foster a more trauma-informed environment, photographs depicting the VJ Day kiss should be removed from all veterans facilities.
Who are you quoting?
The Department of Veterans Affairs.
Did they do this? Did they actually do this? Or
Yes.
they suggesting this?
Yes. No, it's done.
All right, that's it.
Program's done.
Well, I'm about ready to go to jail.
Are you?
I'm about ready to fight somebody
over there.
This is insanity.
I know.
But this is the Department of who?
Veterans Affairs.
And they're the one taking down this
VA.
picture. This
Yes.
picture's everywhere.
I know.
Now
It's
they can
iconic, as they
they
say.
can only take it down in military places, right?
Sure.
In their own buildings.
Yeah, but that's an iconic American picture. That's they're not going to be able to remove it from everywhere. I saw it just the other day somewhere at a restaurant or something. But the point is, these idiots that now control these federal agencies in Washington, D.C., that are far lefties that came in under Obama. Excuse me, most of them came in with Biden. They're far lefties, and they hate America. They hate our history. They hate Christians. They hate God. They hate Jews. I mean, these people are they're into the diversity, equality, and inclusion movement. They believe that America was founded stole property from Native Americans. I mean, these are the same folks, right?
Yeah.
This is the thinking of these idiots that are promote the idea that the soldier is forcing himself on the nurse in that picture. The
And
sailor.
I should be clear before I hear. Yes, thank you. You clarified that it was a sailor, not a soldier. There is a difference. Veterans out there, I apologize for misservicing the person.
I didn't even get
these
that.
Yeah, I
idiots,
said soldier, but it was a sailor.
These far lefties. I'm telling you,
I know.
They're all these agencies in D.C. now are these people have a lot of influence. They came in with Biden. And even though Biden, for most of his career, was maybe a moderate Democrat, okay, he wasn't a flaming liberal. But when he got in, he had to trade off. Remember this? He had to trade off.
That's
Biden
right.
had to say,
Get the support.
let me be the nominee.
That's right.
And in support, and then you can have everything you want, Bernie Sanders. Remember that? Basically.
Yep.
But again, you never know what you're going to get with dementia. So
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's true too. Okay, go.
Well, let me take the other side of the coin then, because we are reading that the financial industry is starting to cut ties with DEI, which stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. DEI, of course, is the program that says you have to make everything equal, not give them equal opportunity, but give them equal outcomes. And it's
That's
where
right.
you have all of the
Well, it's basically get rid of white people.
just about.
That's
Yeah.
what it is.
You want me to boil it down for you?
Yeah, that's it.
White man evil.
White man
Okay.
bad.
Okay, go ahead.
And
It's called DEI though.
it's call they use DEI. It's also kind of in the rubric of critical race theory and the whole bit. But according to Breitbart, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, the Bank of New York Mellon Corporation have all, and more, have all canned their DEI departments. They're
They
out.
can't afford it anymore. They don't do anything.
Well,
except
not only do
crazy crap.
they are
Excuse
paid
me.
a lot.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Go
They
ahead.
are paid a lot, and they don't do a whole lot, but they're also kind of worried about lawsuits, reverse discrimination lawsuits.
Good.
Let me read from Breitbart again. From C-suites down, American finance is quietly reassessing its promise to level the playing field. And this is the article here says, the growing conservative assault on DEI coupled with pockets of resentment among white employees have executives moving to head off accusations of reverse discrimination.
Yeah, lawsuit threat.
Ray, any thoughts on this?
Well, it's about time.
Yep. Amen, brother.
Anything that would stop the DEI steamroller, which has already destroyed so many schools, so many universities, so many colleges, and so many big corporations. Hey, Steve, this is some good news.
Well, I
Also,
think it is. Common
do you have the
sense.
Florida story?
No, which one?
Well,
Oh, you're talking about the school or
Oh,
college,
DeSantis
University of Florida.
getting the DEI out of colleges in Florida? Yeah, I can pull that up.
Related to this, the other day, Governor Ron DeSantis and credit also the state legislature of Florida, they passed a law saying no more diversity, equality, and inclusion being taught on state college campuses. And the other day, the University of Florida had to announce they were closing it all down.
That's right.
I guess they have branches across the state, but the main was in Gainesville. And it was like, we're having to. Do you see this, Ray?
Yeah, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
People think elections don't matter. They do matter. You put in a guy like Ron DeSantis with some backbone, and this is what happens. It's good.
And paraphrasing, the reason behind that said that we need to be able to include everyone. Which only makes sense, right?
Yeah, you know, what's crazy about this movement, which I don't believe the majority of minorities subscribe to
I don't
in this
think
country.
so either.
I don't think a majority of black folks are in favor of having a national anthem for black folks and a national anthem for white folks or for everybody else. I don't think a majority of black Americans, I know this is not true, believe in we ought to have segregated graduation ceremonies. Well, this is what these people push. In the name of racial equity, they push division all the time.
And one of the areas in which this backfired and became more popular to where they had to address it is when the DEI, the woke movement, began to exclude Asian Americans in colleges when it comes to getting funds or getting scholarships. That's when it became, well, they're like, oh, wait a minute, we were trying to keep the white people out, well, now we're kicking out Asian Americans. They're like, oh, we got to answer this. Well, it's our policy.
So yeah, and some of these schools and universities are advocating for segregated dormitories.
That's right, and workout facilities.
And I'm going like, and these are people on the left.
Yeah.
And they're saying, we want segregated dormitories. And I thought, boy, if things change.
The 50s called and want their segregation back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, isn't that bizarre?
Well, could you imagine in the 1950s or 60s if a school said we're going to have only a black-only graduation?
Yeah. But you did have that back in those days because of segregation.
That's right.
You did have that in much of America, maybe not all of America. What I'm saying is we've come full circle now, Ray.
Right. Now we're back where we started.
Now the liberals are wanting segregation.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We had the civil rights movement, which accomplished a great goal of ending the Jim Crow laws and bringing the schools together and integrating society. And so now, Tim, we've come all the way back to where this race here, that race there.
I know.
How is this progress?
Coming back to the story that Steve.
But the good news is, excuse me for interrupting here.
You can do that.
I can do that. I'm your elder.
That's right.
But the good news is here, this is dying. This diversity, equality,
equity.
It's played out. It's playing out and being played out. It's not working.
It's showing to be. It doesn't work.
That's
and
right.
people don't subscribe to it. It's trying to be force-fed on us.
Mm-hmm. It has
by
been.
These far lefties that in colleges and universities, for example, who want to. They go all the way back to we're Americans are living on stolen land. These are the same kind of crazies that push this stuff.
Obviously, they're back to the story Steve brought up. Now, their primary reason would be being countersued for discrimination, which is a legit thing to be concerned about. But something that I didn't think about until you brought this up is there has to be a discussion, too, to be had. They wouldn't want to say this publicly, but they have to be taking a deep sigh of relief of the bloated funds that they're putting toward these types of departments.
Yes, they are. They can't afford it anymore.
Now, they wouldn't that wouldn't be the reason they wouldn't want to go.
I know that.
But they have to be thinking a secondary.
Where can we make cuts? Well, we don't need this DEI anymore.
Yeah, we just hire people
we're
qualified.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we might have mentioned this yesterday in one of the meetings or discussions I had yesterday. We said this, but there's a mistaken issue right now with some of the radicals on the left who think that the reason that the black community is poor and not as well off as the white community is because of slavery and the Civil War, and they're still having the effects of that. But what they don't remember, did we talk about this yesterday? In the 40s and 50s, the black community was doing great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now, Jim Crow notwithstanding, that there were some grave inequities, but economically they were thriving. Their families were together.
Sure.
What drove them apart was Johnson's.
We talked about that yesterday.
Yeah. So and that has everything to do with the DEI thing as well. I mean, they're trying to fix things that the reason that there's these inequities is because the government has built them in.
Listen, all you can ask for in America is opportunity.
That's it.
Opportunity to succeed and to make your life better. And that exists for everybody right now. Everybody. It did not used to, but it does today. It exists for everybody. Opportunity is there to take advantage of America, to succeed with education, with living right, with hard work, with responsibility. I sound like a Boy Scout. They think I need to raise my hand right here. But I mean, all those things. The opportunity is available to everybody. We see that.
But at what I believe the peak of the most opportunity for everyone is when the far left begin to introduce DEI, and that's when you see the drop the other way where they're trying to enforce the diversity, equity, inclusion. It was going back the other way, but the benefits, but people that were Caucasian were getting fired, or they're not getting the opportunities that the woke was, or that DEI was offering. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay.
No.
Let me say
Start
it this
over.
way. At the peak of the most, where America was the most opportunist for everyone. Everyone had a free opportunity. Everyone was equal. Everyone did everything, had the same opportunities. At that point, it seemed to me like that's when the far left and the woke began their DEI, which then began to exclude people based on their race.
Right.
We were going back the other way.
Right.
And it seems to me now that played
No,
out.
yes, you're saying they promote racial discrimination against white people, and namely white males.
That's right.
Yes, that is true.
And we're going
that's
back
the
the
whole
other
part
way.
of it.
Yep.
You have to drag the white males down so that we build everybody else up. Go ahead, Ray. Do you want to?
Just take that one sentence. They promote racial discrimination.
Right.
Period. Just right there. That's what DEI does. It's a divisive doctrine that is meant to separate people.
Right.
Whereas, as you said, Wesley, very well, America had made so much progress.
Yes.
I can remember the old days. I'm old enough to remember what it was like.
Sure.
Growing up in the segregated South, we have come so far. And DEI promotes the kind of discrimination we thought we got rid of a generation ago.
Right, which means really quick. By the way, you're listening to the radio program Today's Issues on American Family Radio. And you can get us on the internet at afr.net, afr.net. We have an app available, an AFR app. You can listen 24/7 to any of our shows on our American Family Radio app. That's what you're listening to. Tim, Wesley, Steve, and Ray. But what these? I'm glad this is failing.
Mm-hmm. Sooner than later.
Yeah,
but it's going to fail.
It's going to fail because it's useless, quite
That's
frankly.
right.
Except to push. These people want to push cultural Marxism.
Yes.
But they want to push racial hatred.
Mm-hmm.
They're the same. They're the same people who say, as I said, they're going to talk about colonialism. They're going to talk about oppressor, oppressed, and they divide us.
The left needs America angry.
Yeah.
They need us angry because that's how they think they get the vote out.
And they hate America. They want to see America fundamentally changed.
They do.
Anyway, they don't. Our institutions, our traditions, our cultures, they can't stand them.
And Wall Street's saying, okay, we're moving away from DEI. We're
good.
Yep.
Good.
Universities now, Wall
That's
Street.
good news.
Hopefully, we can get this type of stuff in public education as well.
Listen, I know Governor DeSantis is not going to be the nominee for the Republicans. Now, he might be in 2028. But he has been killing it in Florida.
Blueprint.
Huh?
We got us a blueprint now.
Yeah, I'd rather call it a red print, but if you want, but that's all right. I understand what you're saying.
That's right.
It's a blueprint by a red state governor.
Yes,
but he's been killing it in Florida in beating these lefties at their own game.
Ben Johnson would call it a white print.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the liberation and the benefits, the positive benefits of conservative policies.
Yeah.
So you're not just having it in theory, you're seeing the actual benefit of it, and which is why I'm saying that I think what he's doing is going to spread, not just from ideologically, but in practicality, because it's one thing to talk about what conservative values can do. It's another thing to show you what conservative values do, and that's exactly what he's doing in Florida.
Yep. Your next story, Steve.
All right, this is a little update about something we talked about yesterday. Remember yesterday we talked about the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals saying that Texas could enforce its own immigration law because the federal government wasn't doing it. So Texas decided they were going to arrest illegal immigrants when they caught them. Well, the Supreme Court weighed in on this. They put the Fifth Circuit, put it on hold so that to give the Supreme Court the opportunity to. The Supreme Court has said, no, you cannot enforce your own. We're going to put a pause on you enforcing your own immigration laws while we decide what we're going to do with it. So the rule is now blocked until March 13th, which gives the 9 justices time to determine what steps next to take. So it's not a ruling based on that they don't think it's constitutional. The Supreme Court just wants to be able to sort this out. And so they're telling Texas, wait before you start arresting illegals.
This is the law Texas passed to allow their police officers and or law enforcement, state I'm talking about, and local, to arrest people here who are here illegally and turn them back over to ICE and that kind of thing?
No, they just, arrest them, and I don't know if they're deporting them themselves. ICE isn't going to deport them. ICE is aren't ICE the ones, along with Border Patrol, that are letting them go?
No, ICE, as far as I know, ICE is still deporting people.
Okay, maybe they're turning them over to ICE.
Well, what I believe this does is allow for Texas to enforce the immigration laws that the federal government should be enforcing.
That's the way I understand it.
But
Right.
anyway,
Right.
But because Biden and company. By the way, interesting. Did you notice the comments by the gentleman who's retiring as border control?
Yes.
What's his name?
Raul Ortiz.
Do you have that story in your stack?
Yeah, I do. We have just a little bit of time. Let's play. So this is Biden's Border Patrol commissioner, and he says in the whole 2 years that he was doing this and the borders being flooded, he never once talked to the president. And this is
vice president.
Cut 11.
I've never had one conversation with the president or the vice president for that matter. And so I was the chief of the Border Patrol. I commanded 21,000 people. That's a problem. We need to make sure that Central America, South America, Mexico, that those regions understand that if you pay a smuggler and you cross in between the ports of entry and you do not have a legitimate claim to some sort of asylum benefit, you're going to be sent back.
Do you believe that the White House has sent mixed messages to migrants?
Yeah, most definitely.
That's a gentleman he's retiring, so he's speaking freely now, who is being interviewed there, and he's in charge of 21,000 Border Patrol agents.
He was responsible for.
Yeah.
And he said, I never once spoke to the president, being Biden, or the vice president, Harris.
The borders are Harris.
Well, Harris was put in charge of the border, and she never spoke to the border. Of course, we all know that was a joke.
Right.
The only time she went to the border was to the El Paso airport. I think she went to the hair salon while she was there.
And by the way,
got a bag, bought a bag, a handbag.
We have discovered Biden's real reason for going to the southern border. He just went last week. According to the Babylon Bee, he went to the border to hand out the I voted stickers.
Babylonian Bee, well done.
Babylon Bee.
Well done. Well done.
All right, Ray, thank you.
You bet. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Steve.
My pleasure.
Thanks to Wesley, Fred Jackson, Brent Creeley, our producer. Is anybody else on? Is that it?
No, that's it. Fred.
It?
You got Fred, didn't you?
Yeah, I got Fred. Included Fred. All right, have a great day, everybody. Thanks for listening to AFR. See you tomorrow.
Hebrews 4:12 tells us the Word of God